So welcome back to MK Tonight. I'm Richard. She is Belle. It's Friday the 13th. We're still with Chris Robinson, who is known as a gifted dream and psychic detective whose prophetic dreams are a near nightly occurrence. We've also got our sofa skeptic for the day, Anne Winsper, who's going to be jutting in every now and then when she thinks it's absolute rubbish. What are you talking about? So basically, Chris, you have these dreams and things come true.
Yeah.
I mean, we had the promo on a trailer of a potential film that's going to come out on DVD and potential TV. I mean, what does that just highlights the whole?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's the story of some of the research and some of the more spectacular premonitions that I've had, and people that will corroborate them. And you know, it should make a good film. I mean.
So we saw, you can't miss the 9/11 images. I mean, you predicted that?
Absolutely. I first started seeing 9/11 in 1999, not knowing what cities it was. I saw the people hijacking the planes.
As clear as the pictures we see on telly?
As clear as the pictures. Well, I saw the pictures of them hijacking the planes as clear in 1999, and I saw cities on fire. It wasn't until August 2001, when I was actually in Arizona, that I knew which buildings in which city they were going to crash them into.
Don't you? I know it's not your fault, but don't you feel guilty that you know it's happened and you can't stop it if your powers?
You know, the way it is at the moment, I see people like me as the ones that are trying to stop it, and the sceptics are trying to stop people listening to us. So the way I see it is the sceptics are trying to let it go on happening, and the psychics are trying to make people listen. Having said that, there has to be room for honest scepticism.
So, Anne, I mean, you know, you're stopping.
From my
good
point
science
of view, we have to test for these things. We have to get some decent protocol so we can see what's going on. Because if it turns out there is something to it, we need to look at it. But we can't just take it at face value and accept it.
Chris, what was your first experience of this dreaming so vividly and
the
seeing
first
things
how
one?
you
come?
cope with it?
The first one was Chernobyl that was really outstanding. And I was staying in London. I was doing some work with a reporter at the News of the World at the time, nothing to do with dreams or psychic or anything. And I dreamt that there was an explosion somewhere to the east, and this radioactive cloud was coming towards London from the east. And I had that dream on a Thursday and a Friday. And actually, if I remember, that's about when it happened, but it wasn't public knowledge until the following either Monday or Tuesday. So the night that I had a dream of this big radioactive cloud was like when it was going on, and just nobody told us yet, you know. So that was the first one. Lockerbie was the big second one.
Gosh, two big ones.
Yeah.
We've got a quote from Professor Gary E. Schwartz of psychology at University of Arizona. I think he was in one of the clips that we showed. He's done various experiments in that, and he says, in my 10 years testing mediums and psychics concerning premonitions, Chris Robinson stands out as the most accurate and experienced. Professor Williams James from Harvard said, in order to disprove the law that all crows are black, you need only find one white crow. Chris is the white crow who reveals the reality of premonition. Should be a magpie, really, in keeping, shouldn't it? So, I mean, you know, posh people in universities giving him clout.
There are posh people in universities casting a lot of doubt on Professor Schwartz's findings and his methodologies. There's a big debate going on at the moment about the methodologies. I mean, in some ways I can see where Chris is coming from, that you can't take somebody out of the environment they normally act in and put them in a completely different one in a laboratory and expect the same thing to happen. But on the other hand, you have to control these things. I mean, one of the things I'm interested in is Chris gets all these apparently remarkable hits. I'd like to know how much of the stuff that he gets isn't significant at all, because I know in some experiments, I know you produce quite a large amount of data.
It's the data that you produce is not what you should be looking at. What you should be looking at is what you say the data means.
But then
so with the Arizona experiments, there would be 5 dreams about a particular experiment. But I would whittle those 5 dreams down to 6 statements. So you will see at the location this, this and this. And that particular experiment those things that you have listed will not appear at any of the others.
I want
But then
So it's very
I know you
interesting.
have methodological problems with the Blackmore.
No, there are always
with
problems.
the
You
Blackmore
could argue
experiments.
together, and we'll start as well, like a married couple. So just gonna shut you up. I mean, you were telling me in the break about the police. SAS was around your garden to protect you from potential terrorists, to stop them from telling you what you might think that they're going to be up to.
I mean, very quickly, at the time I lived in Heath and Reach, I'd had a dream that there was a helicopter flying over my garden performing a search pattern. And I was very worried as to why a police helicopter would be performing a search pattern around my house. So it was decided that I wouldn't stay there that night, and some people would be there to look just to see what was going on. What happened that night, just a bit further up the road, is there was a car accident. And one of the people who was injured in the accident had wandered off from the scene. So the helicopter was over my house on the right night. They were conducting the search pattern, but it was nothing to do with terrorists coming to kill me. Having said that, the dream didn't show terrorists. It just showed that there was this helicopter conducting a search pattern.
I want to get you on, because you're talking about dreams. We've got something in a box over there.
Right.
That it is dear or means something to a member of a team here at MKTV. Now, we're told that you possibly... Can you reach over and go at that time? That you might be able to have perhaps had a dream, even though you've got a bit of a cold, so I don't know if that affects you.
I tried to do this last night, and I've got a dreadful cold and hay fever. I was coughing all night. There were only 2 sections of the dream that could remotely connect to what's in there.
Okay.
And there were 2 things. In one of the dreams, I was in a telephone box, and I was dialing numbers.
Right.
And it was something to do with the phone. In another part of the dream...
That's interesting.
In another part of the dream, I had a remote control. So my guess is that this thing is some kind of zapper, or it's to do with numbers.
Well, let me show you.
But it doesn't always work,
No.
and it depends on so many other things.
Well, this one was a book that one of our production producers, her grandfather wrote, Sergeant Bristow, and it was dear to her. He gave it to her a couple of years before he died. So that's not really...
Nothing there at all.
We had a couple of options. I wasn't going to show this one unless you mentioned it.
Ah, well, if you've got options, you see, then which one do I look at?
Well, neither
what
of
have
them
you got
are
in there?
particularly right. It was a key.
No, they didn't have that either.
No.
Yeah.
Chris, I had some...
I would call that I would just say that simply didn't work.
You did say a telephone booth, didn't you?
I did. I was in a telephone booth.
Mark and Cameron, shall we give him that one, because there's a film coming up that we shot which involves a telephone booth in a little while, doesn't it?
You're
We'll give you that one.
stretch,
That's stretching it a bit, isn't it?
Well, you never know. But actually, I didn't. That's why I didn't bring even any notes, because you can judge the dream in the morning. Do you think this worked? No, I didn't think it did.
Well, Chris, thanks ever so much for coming in, and
Pleasure.
it's really, really interesting. Still to come, have you heard things creaking in the night? Are you the kind of person that won't walk under a ladder? It's Friday the 13th, so we want to know all about your paranormal experiences. We want you to email with your superstitions and stories of Friday the 13th, and we'll be back with you right after the break.